Nice to see everybody. Hope everyone's well. Go ahead, sit on the floor, crossing your shins one in front of the other, sliding the foot underneath the knee. Flex your feet, pulling the toes back so you feel the muscles of the foot engage, calf and thigh, and push your heels down into the floor. Don't push your knees down, but push your heels down so there's some flexion of the inner thigh specifically to begin to open the hip. And the knees will go down when you practice more, not when you force harder. Place your hands on about your middle of your thigh, push your hands down, push your thighs into your hands slightly, lift your spine up nice and tall. The chin kind of hit neutral, let the eyes close. On an exhale, drop the shoulders, relax your arms. Keep that lifted spine. Take just a moment or two here with the eyes closed and recognize how your body, how your mind want to react to the stimulation that you've gone through today, or the stimulation you've gone through in your life, or the stimulation that you've imagined. Recognize all these things want you to act or react in a certain way, want to move you or encourage you to be or do something that may not be ultimately what you want for yourself. When we sit here in the quiet moments, these meditative moments, one of the things is not just meditating correctly, because any meditation, if you sit with the idea of some level of stillness, you're doing it. That's just the first step. Then you can start adding techniques and all this other stuff. But just feel where you are and recognize how, maybe you have anxiousness and your feet wants to wiggle and flex, or your hands always have to move, or you keep fidgeting with your shoulders. And one of the first things when I started doing any levels of serious pranayama or meditation, that serious meaning like at least 10 minutes a day, was sitting there recognizing how all these things wanted me to move, like I had no control. Recognize now that the truth is that you ultimately do have control about how your body is going to move over the next 2 minutes. How you breathe, every little fidget, every little piece. And give yourself permission to not respond to them, to not have to respond to all the thoughts and worries and the ups and downs of life. That in this time, for a couple minutes, you sit in your own body, like the ruler of your castle, and no one can move you off your throne. That you recognize when something wants you to fidget a hand or a leg or move. And if it's a physical need like uncomfortableness, pain, of course, adjust that. We're not here to ignore what's going on in us. But recognize when you start wiggling your fingers for no reason. Shift your shoulder and your neck. Your tongue's on the roof of your mouth. What are you doing just in reaction to something that ultimately isn't what you want to do? We may not feel like we have a lot of control of the world around us. And the world tries very hard, and all the things that happen in it try very hard to tell us we have no control over ourselves, to give our control to it, buy certain brands of things, follow certain people's ideals. But that's not what yoga asks us. Bhakti in yoga, yoga of service, asks that we go out and perform service that we want, things that we choose. So my friends, as we go through the practice tonight, become aware of what goes through your body. And even though you'll follow along with the teacher, I hope, if something's not working for you, recognize you don't have to do it. that it is the time to ask for help, to ask questions, and to let the practice be about serving you, not you moving for it. Because ultimately, it's accepting of that you are in control of you, and all the influences outside, whether charismatic teacher or the news or something that causes an injury, your body, you are ultimately in charge of how your body will react. Once you begin to own that, it sets you on a road of empowerment, change. That is yoga. Bring the palms together at your chest, thumbs touching your sternum. Pull them shortly 3 times, and then we'll begin. Take a breath. Flex your feet. Spine lifted. Bow your head. Salute the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. Let your head rise and your eyes open. Great. It's nice to see everybody. Grab a block, please. If you have a block or a stack of books or whatever prop you use in place of a brick. Lay flat on your back, and then you're going to take that block and squeeze it between your knees with both knees bent and the feet flat to the floor, please. So laying flat on your back with both knees bent, the block between your knees, squeezing it firmly, your feet flat to the floor. Your feet are about as wide apart as the block is, and your knees are. Take a moment here and just squeeze in on the block and notice which muscles of your body flex first. Is it your thigh muscles, your glutes, or do you grip even in your abdominals and your back? Try your best to rotate your thighs internally on the block. So it's not like you're trying to squeeze the feet closer together, but you're trying to roll the upper thigh or the front of your thigh, excuse me, internally on the block. Almost like your backside of your pelvis was being rolled down towards the floor further. Pick up both feet up off the floor so the knees are directly above the hips and hold. Notice for some of us, to start even beginning to lift the legs, you had to kind of like hop the buttock up a little bit, right? Like you had to pick up and flip your butt up because that is your back muscles getting involved in the action. The challenge of that is to isolate it down to the legs better and less with your back muscles. So take both arms wide, turning your palms up to the ceiling, pressing the back of your hands into the floor. Arms wide, palms up. Press the back of the hand in the floor. Squeeze the block and be aware of how much one leg is squeezing the other and keep trying to roll the thighs in. Take both knees to the right, but do not lay your right leg on the floor. Take it as far as you can, but at least stop 1 inch above the floor so your legs are floating. Then notice which leg wants to engage and which leg wants to engage. Usually, if we're tight in the hip and in the back, which we're here, so that means we probably are, stretch your left leg further across, like you're stretching your left knee towards the other side of you. Don't straighten the leg. It's not straightening the knee joint. You're stretching the thigh bone. So it's like you're stretching your knee joint over. Because if you look at your knees right now, they're not stacked up on the block perfectly, right? Your right knee is farther forward, then there's your block, then there's your left knee. Try to stretch your left side over to the right side so that you're trying to even out the knees above with the block between. Take a breath, bring your legs up. Now, if you look at your knees are squeezing the block evenly. Be aware of that. Try to keep that as you roll your legs to the left, stopping about an inch off the floor. And then notice how the knees are probably not as even. Mostly because at one point during your twist, the leg muscles stopped squeezing the block. Your top leg just kind of laid on the block, pinning it to your bottom leg. When you go across into a twist, the top leg, in this case your right leg, should extend over, not just laying down on the bottom leg, or in this case the block, but it should be extending the same direction you're twisting, like you're trying to lengthen the right femur bone away from the hip. This is challenging to do because it asks a lot more movement from the back muscles, some from the hip, and for us to stop moving the lower back as much. Take your legs up, go to the right again. So you take both legs to the right, again, squeeze the blocks. Notice how one leg, the left probably, wants to not work as intensely. Keep squeezing the legs in because it's the pressure of the left leg squeezing down and the right leg squeezing up into the block that stabilizes the inner right thigh, the inner right groin, and then the outer left hip and the outer left thigh. It's different muscles to press down rather than lift up. So your right leg is pushing up into the block as your left leg is depressing down. Take a few more breaths. Bring your leg up. Equally press the legs in together. Take both legs to the left. Again, try to be aware of the right thigh, the right glute has to stretch over the block and down, while the left thigh has to press up into the block. Bring your body up. Stretch both legs straight up to the ceiling, still trying to squeeze the block between the knees, please. Stretch both arms wide. You don't need to use your hands. You don't need to pull the legs closer. They should just be above your hips, not above your chest bone. Squeeze one leg into the block, then the other. Really flex the glutes, flex the inner thigh. When the legs are straight up in the air, it takes both the inner and outer thigh muscles to do so. Now, as best you can with both arms wide, take both legs to the right, like you're trying to take your feet to your right hand. But stop before you hit the hand. So depending on your mobility and your abdominal and back muscle stability, you will probably have some challenge holding your feet 1 inch above your hand, like the teachers would say. So only go as far to the right as you can hold this without collapsing or dropping the block or completely losing your twist. Even if your knees are more bent than straight, that's fine. You're starting to explore range of motion and extension reaction of the legs, back, and the core. Squeeze that block. Exhale, bring the legs up. Take both legs to the left, squeezing the knees, squeezing the block with the knees. Taking both feet towards the left hand. Now look at your knees. Notice how one knee wants to bend and the other wants to straighten. Try to keep them equal in their bent and or straightness. All of this is kind of showing you those joints are going to react and show you what's going on in your hips, your back, shoulders. Yes, even in your poor shoulders. Bring your legs up. Lay both legs down on the floor, still squeezing the block between the knees, both legs straight. Both legs straight out on the floor, squeezing the block between your knees. Stretch both arms overhead, laying the back of the hand onto the floor. Stretch the arms long. Press the back of the hand down fairly firm. Now, one of the ways that abdominal work and mobility helps the body is that it gives some relief to the hamstrings, stabilizes your back, lots of things we already heard. But the other thing is it teaches us how to engage our abdominals to help move our legs from this supine position. At the very start of class, I asked you all to notice that when I said pick your knees towards your chest, some of you popped your butt up a little bit to help bring the knees in. That's a sign of really working your lower lumbar instead of your core. So let's see what happens here. Squeeze the block. Think about your bottom ribs on the front side of your rib cage. So you can go from the top, if you know where your collarbones are, trace your fingers all the way down to the bottom ribs. And it's not gripping the abdominals, because the abdominal space between those floating ribs is your diaphragm. Pull those bottom floating ribs down, and then pick up both legs about 30 degrees off the floor. These can be bent, or if you can keep them straight, go for it. But pick your feet up about 30 degrees off the floor. Squeeze the block. And notice how hard it is to try to pick up both legs at the same time. Breathe. Point your feet instead of flexing them, even if your knees are bent, and the knees can be very bent, that's okay. Now go up to about 60 degrees from the floor. A little lower, Chaya. Right there. Point your feet, stretch your legs long. Think about stretching your thighs away from your abdominals, so your abdominals have to flex to stabilize them. Pick both legs straight up into the air. Keep pointing the feet. Stretch the arms overhead, keep elongating the body. This is to keep your shoulders from crawling up into your neck. And it will make it harder because it actually asks your upper back muscles to extend instead of curl forward. Lower the legs down to 60 degrees. Point them feet. Lower your legs down to 30. Lower your legs down and rest for a moment. Squeeze the block between the knees. Draw your right knee to the chest, keeping your left leg straight, pressing your left thigh towards the floor and into the block. So it's pressing down and across into the block. Drawing your right knee to the chest, take your left hand and grab a hold of your right foot. Your right hand holds the knee. Rotate the shin bone to come across the chest and draw the shin bone towards the chest, stretching the hip. So left hand grabs your right foot, please. Pull the shin bone across the chest, using the right hand holding the right knee, and draw the shin bone towards your chest bone. There you go, Pratima, better. Notice how much your left thigh came up off the floor and it came away from the yoga block. Keep pressing your left thigh down, squeezing your left leg towards the block, even though your right leg is not pressing into it. The block goes on the inside of your knee, Chai. You don't need to move your block. Keep pulling the right shin bone towards the chest. Push the left thigh down, squeeze the left thigh into the block, and now engage the abdominals with the shin bone coming towards your chest, not just your knee. Some of you are leaving your knee very bent. Open your knee up a little bit so your shin bone would come more parallel across the chest. There you go. And now, right hand holds the right knee, left hand holds the right foot. Bend your elbows wide. Instead of shrugging your shoulders into your neck to pull your leg in, bend your elbows wide and lift your chest up towards your right shin. So now the upper abdominals flex. But notice your left leg wants to come up. Try not to let it. Press it down. Keep lifting the chest towards the shin. Head up, chest up, core up, so there's a flex. All right, stretch your right leg out. Squeeze the block between the knees, both legs straight. Squeeze the right knee into the block. Squeeze the right thigh down towards the floor. Draw your left knee to your chest. Right hand grabs the left foot. Pull the shin bone towards the chest. Move the shin across. So don't pull the left knee in farther than the foot, because then that's just a stretch to your groin. You want to rotate that femur bone and that shin bone. So you unbend the knee a little. You work more pulling on the foot than you do on the knee itself. Over pulling the knee will not help. And you start to stretch here. Push the right thigh down, squeeze your right knee into the block. So your right thigh squeezes to the left. Grab a hold of your left shin there, Glinda. Pull it towards your chest with your arms. The right hand holds the left foot. Left hand holds the left knee. So you get that stretch to the hip, get some challenge of the muscle of the arms. Now pick your chest and head up towards them. Activate the core muscles by pulling your bottom ribs down, taking a deep abdominal breath. And when you exhale, pull the abdominals down. Don't harden them, but try to hollow out the stomach so you have to flex the back muscles. Use your arms to pull you up a little and your core to pick your chest up towards your shin. You can lift your head. If you're bringing your head up, pull your head towards your shin bone rather than your chin into your neck. Pulling your chin to your neck will only tighten your neck. Pulling your whole head towards the shin bone will engage the neck and the upper spine to have to move. A few more seconds. Go ahead and take an exhale, stretch the legs out. Squeezing the block between the knees again. Oh, we're not done. Stretch the arms overhead, pressing the back of the hands into the floor. Move the bottom ribs down towards the ground. Not your low back. I'm not asking you to move your spine. I'm asking you to learn to feel where your intercostal muscles are, and that's the muscle between the ribs. How to engage your abdominals, not to grip or compress you, but to flex in a way that is not a curl, This is to help protect your back over time. Pick both legs up and the block about 30 degrees off the floor. Point the feet, stretch those legs away from the body. And breathe. And go, oh my God, how long do I have to be here? Forever. Up to 60 degrees. Urdhva Prasarita Tadasana. Take the legs straight up. Point those feet. Stretch those arms long. Move those ribs down. Squeeze that block. Rotate those thighs in. Lower down to 60. Work the arms. Work the bottom ribs down. Squeeze the legs. Stretch the legs away from your thigh. The legs are not just dead weight. They're extending. Lower to 30. Don't give up, even if you have to bend the knees. It's okay. Just don't give up on yourself. Do what it takes to stay in it, right? Remember what I said at the start. You're ultimately the one that has control. And while you can stop, ask yourself what tells you need to stop. Is it pain or is it just hard? We do hard things now to heal, to be strong, to be stable. So when the truly challenging things come, we can be present for them, not check out. All right, legs down. Take a nice deep breath in, pick up both legs straight up. Chatara. Parivartarasana. Well, my tongue got twisted. Both legs straight up. Now take both arms wide out alongside the body, palms up to the ceiling. Take both legs towards the right hand. But notice again which leg wants to quit working. Try to keep each leg engaged. Look at your knees as one straight and one bent. Make them equal, whether it's you straighten both of them or you bend both of them. Ask your body to try both, because one will lead to balance and one will just encourage frustration. Even if your knees are bent, great, make them bent equally. Even if your legs are weak, great, make them just work only as much as they can. Stay in this, practice being capable rather than practice frustrating yourself. I don't think of many teachers that would tell me to constantly fail and not give me a roadmap to succeed. They ask me to work where I am to get to where I want to be. Bring both legs up. Take both legs to your left. And then when you take your legs to the left, however far they go, whether it's 1 inch from the hands or only 1 inch from original position, whichever it is, look at your knees, both straight or both bent. Look at your legs. Is the right outer thigh pressing the block down, and is your inner left thigh pulling the block up? And keeping yourself present and active in the work. Take both legs up. Bend the knees, take the block out. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Draw both legs to you, grabbing the back of your left thigh with both hands. Just bending the elbows to stretch out the hip for a moment, giving your back muscles a chance to relax if they've gotten a little fatigued. Stretch your left leg straight up, and if you need to use a yoga strap, please do so. Grab the foot with the hand and pull the leg in. I mean the foot. Don't grab your calf. Don't grab your ankle. Don't grab your pant leg. It's either the foot or use a strap to grab your foot. Because the hip lifts a little bit with this. Yeah. So when you bend your elbows wide to widen your upper back to release your neck, and you pull on that strap to draw the shin bone in, to draw that leg in, your glutes will lift a little. That's fine. We're not here to keep a perfectly level spine. We're using the poses in class today to stabilize the core, loosen the back, move the hips, and actually help open our body to better breathing. When your back and your core not in alignment, it's harder to breathe through the lungs. Harder to get that extending breath from the diaphragm, which starts at the corners of top of the pelvis bone all the way up to the top of the lung. So when you're here, take a few breaths in. Notice if you're gripping in the upper part of your lung, can you bend your elbows out wide so you're not squeezing them in towards the chest? And breathe better. Small adjustments like that, bending the elbows wide, using a strap, things like that. Make it so you can be in the pose. So it's not you trying at something without the guidance to encourage your body to the right thing. Because you can create different things in every pose you do. You want to create tension, you can grip your neck. You want to create openness, you bend your elbows and open wide. Don't be afraid to, as I said before, recognize your own royalness, your own place, your own throne that you sit on that lets you control how you get what you get from this. And I would encourage you against just going for raw sensation, just intensity. Bring the legs down, but let's switch it up. Left hand clover, right thigh. You can go ahead, stretch your right leg up, and if you want to grab the foot with the hand, that's okay, or the yoga strap. Ooh. Again, check your arms, check your elbows, check your breathing. Make the pose something that's really creating for you. Don't just let it happen to you, but take some ownership of what's happening in this and even modify it. Even if I don't say bend your elbows wide or take the tongue off the roof of your mouth. If you've got that little thing that doesn't take you out of the pose, but makes you able to be more present in the pose, do it. Just because a teacher never told you to do it doesn't mean it's wrong. Could be you've just created the or found or know the best way to modify it to create a certain effect. Another moment or two, just take a few more breaths. Bring the leg down. Squeeze the block between your knees again. Oh no, oh yes. Stretch both legs straight out, laying your legs onto the floor, pointing the foot. Engage the leg now. The leg has had a lot of movement, has had some flexion. Legs laying on the floor. Stretch the leg away from you. Stretch the arms overhead, laying the back of the hand to the floor, and stretch the arms away from you. Then you extend both sets of limbs, the arms and the legs, so that the back muscles have to act. They have to pin down. Then you engage your abdominals by pulling your bottom ribs towards the ground and then lift both legs about 30 degrees off the floor. Even if you have to bend the knees, do what you can. Point those feet. Good job, Glenda. Little higher, Miss Pratima. There you go, friend. Up 30 more. All the way up. Straighten the legs as best you can. Squeeze those blocks. Now, remember, it is okay to have the knees bent, but let everything be equal. Let yourself use your eyes to try and get some level of balance in this. So then you can start to surmise and then feel if one side is off more than the other. Like if you notice your left leg straightens more than your right, but you don't feel the same pressure in your left hip as you do your right. Try to create some level of evenness. Lower the legs down to 60 degrees. Hold. Do this every night for 3 weeks. Very strong cores. Very, very mobile backs. Lower to 30. And rest. Good. Take the block out. Stretch your legs straight out. Roll onto your left side. Your legs will still be straight. They can be a little bent to help your balance. But laying on your left side, take your left hand, place it just behind the ear, behind and above the ear on the left side. So your left elbow is on the floor, left ribs are on the floor. So your upper body is tilted up at an angle slightly. Good. Draw your right knee to your chest, grab your right big toe with your right hand. Be careful, all right? Be aware, some of you already know Anatanasana, but then check in with your chest, head, and neck. Notice has your head and neck come down into the chest. And you lift it and turn the head to look up the direction the foot is going to point towards the ceiling first. Not just with your eyes. Notice if you move your eyes, you really don't get much. Using your hand as a balance, rotate the head, right? You can use your hand to help move the head into the twist as you push the right foot against the hand and stretch the leg upward. Then take your right leg straight up, Glenda. Holding it with your hand, please. Grab your right big toe with your hand, Glenda. Now straighten it up. Check in with your left leg. Is your left thigh flexed? Do you remember what it felt like to have the block between the thigh, the flexion of those muscles? Press that left thigh down so you can lift your right hip up. Because notice if you're rolling backwards, you're probably putting more weight to the low back and things like that. Can you roll your back hip, your right hip forward And then you feel how the core has to work and your legs have to work. Bring your right leg down. Roll to your other side. Draw with your right hand under your head. Draw your left knee to your chest, hook the big toe, turn the head to look up. Make that neck rotate. You're moving the spine, so move the uppermost part of your spine, your neck, and stretch the left leg up towards the ceiling then. Good. And then notice the tendency to want to fall backwards. Can you somehow learn to start moving the muscles of the right side of the body, to press them down so that they lift? Remember what I've said before, do not worry about pushing into the thing you do not have support from. Don't rely on air to support you, rely on the earth. So push what already is touching the floor. If your foot's touching the floor, push your foot harder. If your right hip is touching the floor, push it harder. Elbow, push it. Don't push the space that has nothing there. It will move into it when it's time. Push your foot against your hand even. Take a nice breath, bring the leg down. Nicely done. Grab a block. All right, if you have a neck issue, and I mean your neck issue is your neck hurts when you move it back, or if it hurts right now, have another blanket or something nearby to use for extra support. But for mostly you will want to use just a block on this. You're going to take the block and lay it flat on your yoga mat and lay on it so your shoulder blades are are on the block. Your head will hang off of the block so the crown of the head goes towards the floor. If for some reason your head does not touch the floor comfortably, you can put a little bit of support, start like blanket building or things like that until you get there. So one block flat, head tilted off. Don't put your shoulder joints on the block, put your shoulder blades. So Glenda, scoot on the block more. Y'all got to give your neck some room to move. So if that block is not in the middle or lower part of your shoulder blades, keep moving on the blocks. If you feel that block press onto the back of your shoulder joint, you're not going to get it. It's going to hurt. Uttana Padasana. Uttana Padasana is a lot of core and back and neck work. It's about stabilize. A lot of the poses tonight have been stabilizing the core to stabilize the spine, and the neck is part of the spine, as I've talked about in the past month. So here with the head tilted back, it is not pressing the back of your head towards the floor, but trying to tilt your head enough to get the crown of your head, the very top of it, to start pressing into the floor. So for a moment, just experiment. What does it take to press the head down into the floor and roll towards the crown of the head, roll towards the top? So it's like you're looking straight at the world behind you. Not at the wall, but you're like looking at your baseboard. Feel that muscle flex. And then relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Press that down, feel it. Okay, you got it. Notice if you're gripping in your jaw, move the bottom row of your teeth behind the upper row of your teeth so you're not pushing your jaw forward. That's not what you're doing. You're not here to give yourself the bottom fangs. Stretch both arms straight up towards the ceiling. And then move your hands about 30 degrees towards your feet. Straight arms. Now, stretch the arms away from you as hard as you can so you feel the shoulder blades widen. Imagine someone had a hold of your hands and was pulling on you. That kind of feeling of lift of your arms, not straight up, but a little lower, Pratima, towards your feet. Right there, right there. And stretch those shoulders away from your neck. So you feel the shoulder blades broaden on the block. Now push the head down at the same time. Notice how your legs flex? We're going to come to that. But work your back, work your shoulders. Stretch the arms away from the movement of the neck. Remember, all yoga poses really are two parts moving away from each other. So your arms are moving away from your head. Great. Take a nice breath. Bend both knees. Keep your arms if you can. So where your knees are right now, your knees do not go higher or lower. Your legs do not need to go higher or lower. Pick your feet up and stretch your legs straight out at that height. Woo! Point the feet. Pick your legs up a little higher, Katie, and lower your hands down a little bit. Even if your knees have to be bent, that's fine. Now push the head down into the block. Stretch the arms. Stretch your legs. Feel the core flex. Stretch your head down. Exhale, relax. Bring the arms down. So now you got to feel the shape of the pose. Now we're going to take the prop out. Dun, dun, dun. So no block. I'm going to talk you through it first. So listen carefully. If you are confused about what to do, this is your time to rest and listen, but not rest and let your mind wander. The first thing you do is lift your chest and move the crown of the head to the floor. This is about building neck strength because your neck is part of your spine. When you tilt your head back, squeeze your shoulder blades together, start to lift your chest up. You can push your palms into the floor next to your hips. Push your hands down into the floor next to your hips to lift your chest up, and then move the crown of the head to the floor like it was hanging off the block, and lift your chest any degree and hold. Not your hips, just your chest. You're trying to pick your chest and shoulders up off the floor. It is challenging to learn to lift the upper body by only your head. Then stretch both arms straight up. Move the arms up away from the floor. Stretch the shoulder away from the floor. And then move your hands towards your knees and stretch your arms that way. Stretch your arms long. A little higher than that, Glenda, but you got the right idea, dear. Right there. Now, everyone bend your knees. Keep the head. Don't tuck your chin. Tilt your chin up. Roll the whole skull. Lift the chest by working the back. Stretch the arms. Stretch your legs out. Best to, even if you only pick your feet up off the floor, half an inch. Work your head down. Work your hips down. Work your limbs long. Higher with your arms, Pratima. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Whew. So now you've done it with the prop and without the prop. So we're going to go back to the prop one more time, just so you can get, you've had a compare and contrast. You're going back to it with experience. This is why I can make a whole career out of teaching like 5 poses, because every time we do it, it's different. So grab your block, lay it flat on your mat, shoulder blades on the block, head tilted back. Remember what I said at the start. If something comes up for you in this, it's time to be aware of why. Are you afraid of doing this pose? What's your fears? And are you letting fear only dominate all of the way you react to this? You're the lord or lady of your own manor. You're the royalty in charge of your own kingdom. Everyone start with your legs straight. We're going to add to it a little bit. Crown of the head tilting towards the floor. Push the head down into the floor. Stretch both arms straight up. We won't dally as much. Stretch the shoulders away from the body. Stretch the shoulders away from the arms. Now, move the hands towards the legs about 30 degrees, so they're at an angle. Stretch those arms. Stretch the index and pinky away from the hand. Stretch the inner and outer forearm away from the elbow. Stretch the bicep and tricep away from the shoulder. Let your shoulder blades stretch away from the block. Push your head down like you were going to lift up off of the block. Now, thighs tight together, point your feet, stretch your legs away from your hips, push your hips into the floor like you're pushing your head into the floor, and lift your legs up about 30 degrees. Woo! Push into the support you have. head, hips, and then the block takes over the rest. But try to lift up off the block with your chest and your back as much as you can. Pick out something, learn something new from it. Take a breath. Exhale, come on out. All right. Take the block out, lay flat on your back again. Here we go. One more time without the prop. You brave warrior yogis, you. Exploring all sorts of different stuff. Challenging your necks. Challenging all things. All right, press the palms down alongside your thighs and hips. With your arms nice and straight, push down hard to start lifting your chest up. Move your head back, moving the crown of the head towards the floor. Everything starts to lift. Don't be afraid to push it down. You've got a lot of muscle in there. Take your arms up off the floor. Stretch them straight up to the ceiling. Stretch the hand away from the forearm, forearm away from elbow, bicep, tricep away from shoulder. Lower it down so it's about, there you all know where to go. Yeah, so it's not laying alongside your body, but it's about 30 degrees from straight up. All right, point your feet, stretch your legs long, squeeze those thighs tight. Push into the support you have. You have the ground, push your head into it. You have your hips, push your hips into the ground. Lift your thighs up about 30 degrees off the floor. Stretch your legs away from your buttock. Let the back arch, like we do in bridge pose. Breathe, get shaky. Exhale, relax. Take the block, place it between your knees with both knees bent. Don't worry, you're not going to have to do the core part. Stretch both arms wide, palms turned up to the ceiling. Pick up both knees so both feet are up off the floor. Take both legs to your right, squeezing the block equally right, even though you know you might be close to the end of class. Try to end the class with all the stuff you learned. So if you look at your knees, move them evenly. Is one leg straighter than the other? Try to make them work together. Right? We hear all the time, we get through everything together. We have two halves of your body that aren't working together. Ask them to work together. Take both legs to the left. Exhale, bring the body back to center. Stretch your legs out, take the block out. Let the eyes close. As you lay here in Savasana for a few moments, begin to engage into Ujjayi Pranayama, which I'll go over briefly if you don't remember much about it. Remember, that Ujjayi Pranayama is not about how much noise you make, but the consistency. Because as we know, you do not gain mastery of anything without consistency. I can practice playing my instruments until my fingers bleed once a month, or I can spend 20 minutes a day and not injure myself. One will give me mastery, the other will just give me a very large doctor's bill. With your eyes closed, turn your eyes down to the tip of your nose. When you engage the eyes in any form of Ayurvedics or pranayama, they are directional force. They are one of the five senses, and all of them should be turned inward. Do not let your eyes wander, but drive your vision towards the tip of your nose, even though your eyes are closed. And you take a slow breath in through the nostrils. Let the breath come across the top palate of the mouth, so it makes that syllable S sound. Or as Mr. Iyengar would say, breathe in through the inner nostril up to the inner corners of the eye. So you hear that. Let yourself fill your lungs full. Your abdomen drawn in. And when you exhale, let the breath come from underneath the eye or from the back of the throat down the outer nostril. So it's not as focused or strained as the inhale. On your next inhale, whenever you're ready to take it, draw the navel towards your spine and draw the navel up the spine towards the diaphragm, and then breathe in Ujjayi to the inner nose, to the inner corners of the eyes. So you get that strained, narrowed S. And when you filled your lungs, exhale from the underneath the eye, from the back of the throat, rolling forward, like the sounds of waves going away. And repeat again, navel towards the spine, lifted towards the top of the spine, right? Draw the breath through the inner nostril up, inner corners of the eye. When your lungs are full, and don't be afraid to ask yourself at that full point, are they really full, or can you take in a little bit more? When you exhale, exhale from the back of the throat, underneath the eye, out. Total emptiness. And before you breathe in, check to make sure you completely let it go. We cannot learn anything about ourselves if we don't apply the techniques to ourselves like a microscope. If we don't ask ourselves to see all the things about ourselves that do not conform to the techniques. It does not mean we are wrong, does not mean we have failed. But it means we are in practice, that we are living and moving and changing and growing and always. Do not let your meditative or pranayama or yogic practice of asana be one of trying to only practice perfectly, like I did. Let it be one of experimentation and joy and expansion. Let each inhale extend your lungs, not constrain your breathing. Let each exhale extend the freedom you have by letting go. Recognize your own power, your own sovereignty, for lack of a better word, and that each inhale and exhale is not you being forced, but you breathing in using this technique is a way to observe and to teach yourself something about you. Not that you're right or wrong. This is not a test. This is a time of renewal, our practice of yoga. So when you breathe in, do Ujjayi. Before you take that breath in, draw the navel to the spine and lift. So you are observant to what your lungs can do, not just your belly. Breathe in with the focus of the eyes towards the tip of the nose so your mind does not wander to the groceries, to the day's work. And when you breathe in, breathe along the inner nostril up towards the nose, towards the inner corners of the eye nearest the nose. And when you exhale, exhale from underneath the eye to the outer nostril. Like an umbrella pull, the breath rises. Like the umbrella fabric, it fans out. And do so, my friends, for the next moment or two, and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice.